In the labyrinth of coral reefs and submerged rock formations, there are places where light hesitates. Narrow crevices, shadowed tunnels, and broken stone corridors form a hidden world beneath the surface. It is here, in these compressed spaces, that the moray eel exists, not as a swimmer of open water, but as a resident of darkness. Unlike predators that patrol vast territories, the moray eel waits. And in waiting, it has mastered an entirely different way of surviving. The evolutionary story of the moray eel begins not with speed, but with structure. As reefs grew more complex over millions of years, new ecological niches emerged, spaces too tight for most predators to exploit. While many fish evolved to chase, the moray eel evolved to occupy. Its elongated, muscular body became perfectly suited for threading through cracks and anchoring itself within stone. Movement was no longer about distance, it was about precision. Physically, the moray eel appears almost unfinished to the untrained eye. Its skin lacks the smooth scales typical of most fish, replaced instead by thick, leathery tissue coated in mucus. This is not a flaw, but a defense. The mucus reduces abrasion against sharp rock and coral, while also containing toxins that deter parasites and predators alike. Every inch of the Murray's body reflects a life spent in contact with unforgiving surfaces. The most unsettling feature of the moray eel is its mouth. Perpetually open, lined with needle-like teeth, it gives the impression of constant aggression. In reality, this open mouth posture has nothing to do with threat displays. It is respiration. Moray eels rely on pumping water across the gills by opening and closing their jaws. What appears as a snarl is simply the cost of breathing in tight quarters. Yet behind this functional necessity lies one of the most extraordinary anatomical adaptations in the animal kingdom. Hidden within the moray eel's throat is a second set of jaws, pharyngeal jaws, capable of extending forward to grasp prey and pull it deeper into the esophagus. This mechanism is not a curiosity, it is a solution to a problem few animals face. In confined spaces, suction feeding is impossible. There is no room to create the pressure needed to draw prey inward. The moray eel solved this by evolving a grabbing system instead. This adaptation transformed the moray eel into a specialized ambush predator. It does not pursue prey across reefs. It waits, motionless, blending into shadow and stone. When a fish or crustacean wanders too close, the strike is instantaneous. There is no chase, no warning. The prey is seized, dragged inward, and consumed within seconds. Efficiency replaces spectacle. Behaviorally, the moray eel is largely nocturnal. As daylight fades and reef fish seek shelter, the moray emerges partially from its crevice, testing the water with slow, deliberate movements. Darkness levels the playing field. Vision becomes less reliable. Proximity becomes danger. This is the moray eel's advantage. Despite its fearsome reputation, the moray eel is not reckless. It rarely leaves the safety of its shelter entirely. Its world is defined by boundaries, and it respects them. The eel's confidence comes not from dominance, but from control over a specific space, a territory measured in meters, not miles. Its interactions with other species are complex. Reef ecosystems are crowded, competitive environments, yet the moray eel coexists with surprising tolerance. Cleaner fish enter its mouth without fear, removing parasites from teeth that could easily crush them. This uneasy truce reflects a broader ecological truth. Even the most lethal predators depend on cooperation. For much of its life, the moray eel remains unseen by humans. Divers glimpse teeth in shadow, eyes reflecting torchlight, bodies retreating deeper into stone. These brief encounters fuel myths of aggression and malice. But the reality is quieter. The moray eel is not hunting humans. It is defending space, reacting to intrusion, responding to threat. In the architecture of the reef, the moray eel fills a role few others can. It regulates populations within crevices, removes weak or careless prey, and contributes to the overall balance of a system built on competition and constraint. Its absence would leave empty spaces, not just in stone, but in function. And so, hidden beneath layers of coral and time, the moray eel waits. It has no need to roam. The world comes to it. To truly understand the moray eel, fear must be set aside. Fear blurs perception, and the moray eel has suffered from centuries of misunderstanding born from human instinct rather than observation. What looks like menace is often simply mechanics. What appears aggressive is usually defensive. And what seems primitive is, in fact, an advanced solution to a highly specific environmental challenge. The moray eel's most famous adaptation, the pharyngeal jaw system, is not merely an anatomical curiosity, but a direct response to the physical limits of reef life. In open water, most fish rely on suction feeding, rapidly expanding the mouth cavity to draw prey inward. In the tight confines of rock and coral, this is impossible. There is no room to generate suction. For the moray eel, this limitation became an evolutionary opportunity. The second set of jaws, located deep in the throat, acts independently of the primary jaws. When prey is seized, these pharyngeal jaws shoot forward, latch onto the victim, and retract, pulling it deeper into the esophagus. This movement is fast, precise, and irreversible. Prey has no chance to escape once engaged. It is one of the few examples in vertebrates where feeding resembles mechanical grasping rather than fluid dynamics. This system allows the moray eel to hunt without leaving its shelter. The body remains anchored, muscles braced against stone, while only the head and jaws perform the strike. Energy expenditure is minimal, risk is minimized. In an environment where exposure means vulnerability, this restraint is critical. Muscle coordination in the moray eel is remarkably advanced. The elongated body is composed of repeating muscle segments that allow controlled waves of motion. These movements are not for speed, but for leverage. The eel can reverse direction instantly within narrow tunnels, wedge itself tightly when threatened, and apply immense force without external movement. What appears slow is actually deliberate. Respiration further illustrates this efficiency. Because moray eels live in low-flow environments, they cannot rely on constant water movement across the gills. Instead, they actively pump water by opening and closing their mouths. This constant motion, often mistaken for aggression, is simply survival. The moray eel is breathing. Diet varies by species and habitat, but the principle remains consistent. Moray eels consume fish, crustaceans, octopus, and occasionally smaller eels. They are opportunistic, not indiscriminate. A moray eel will ignore prey that does not justify the energy cost or risk of capture. Hunger does not override calculation. Hunting often occurs at night, when reef structures become labyrinths of movement. Diurnal fish settle into crevices, believing themselves safe. The moray eel, already resident in these spaces, becomes an active force. It navigates by touch and vibration more than sight, sensing pressure changes as prey moves nearby. Darkness is not a disadvantage, it is an equalizer. Interactions with other predators reveal another layer of complexity. In rare but documented cases, moray eels have been observed engaging in cooperative hunting with reef fish. One species flushes prey from hiding, the other intercepts escape routes. This behavior suggests situational intelligence rather than rigid instinct. The moray eel can adjust strategy based on context. Despite its fearsome image, the moray eel does not seek conflict. It does not patrol territory aggressively. Most bites to humans occur when divers place hands into crevices or confuse fingers with food during feeding interactions. These are mistakes of proximity, not predation. The moray eel reacts to intrusion, not opportunity. The eel's skin plays a silent but vital role in survival. Thick, scaleless, and coated in mucus, it resists abrasion and infection. The mucus contains compounds that inhibit bacterial growth, critical in environments where wounds are inevitable. This chemical shield allows the moray eel to survive injuries that would be fatal to more delicate fish. Growth is slow, lifespan relatively long. The moray eel invests in durability rather than reproduction speed. Eggs are released into open water, larvae drifting far from reefs before settling. Many never return. Those that do carry instincts refined for confinement, shadow, and patience. In the grand architecture of the reef, the moray eel is not a roaming predator but a structural one. It occupies negative space, filling ecological gaps others cannot. Remove it, and those spaces change. Prey populations shift. Competition intensifies. Balance bends. The moray eel does not dominate the reef by force. It dominates by belonging to places others cannot. And in those places, it remains unmatched. The moray eel's reputation has always traveled faster than the truth. For centuries, it has been cast as an embodiment of menace, an ambush predator with a permanent snarl, lurking in darkness, waiting to strike without reason. This image, reinforced by brief and often misinterpreted human encounters, has obscured a far more nuanced reality. The moray eel is not an agent of chaos. It is a specialist responding precisely to its environment. Most interactions between humans and moray eels occur at the edge of misunderstanding. Divers enter reef systems as visitors, often unaware that the spaces they explore are already occupied. A crevice is not empty simply because it is dark. When a hand enters that space, the moray eel does not perceive a human, it perceives intrusion. In the sensory language of pressure, vibration, and proximity, there is no distinction between a careless finger and a potential threat or food item. The response is instantaneous and defensive. This distinction matters. Moray eels do not pursue humans. They do not stalk or hunt divers. Almost all documented bites occur under two conditions: provocation or confusion during feeding. In both cases, the eel reacts within the narrow framework of its evolutionary programming. Blame, in these encounters, lies less with the animal and more with a failure to respect context. Socially, moray eels exist in a state best described as tolerant solitude. They are not schooling animals, nor are they aggressively territorial in the conventional sense. Multiple individuals may occupy adjacent crevices within the same reef structure without conflict. Boundaries are implicit, not enforced through constant aggression. This arrangement reduces energy expenditure and allows high predator density in complex habitats. Communication between moray eels is subtle. Body posture, head orientation, and proximity convey intent. An eel that feels threatened will open its mouth wider, elevate its head, and retreat deeper into its shelter if possible. These are warnings, not invitations to escalate. Only when retreat is impossible does the eel defend itself physically. One of the most misunderstood aspects of moray eel behavior is its interaction with cleaner species. Cleaner fish and shrimp routinely enter the eel's mouth, removing parasites and dead tissue from between its teeth. This behavior requires an extraordinary level of trust on both sides. The moray eel suppresses its feeding response, allowing vulnerable animals access to one of the most dangerous spaces in its body. In return, it gains hygiene and health. This exchange contradicts the image of an indiscriminate killer. It reveals an animal capable of behavioral inhibition and cooperation. Even more striking are observations of interspecies hunting coordination. In some reef systems, moray eels have been seen working alongside predatory fish such as groupers. The fish signals the eel, often through head shaking or body orientation, directing it toward prey hidden in crevices. The eel flushes the prey out, the fish captures it in open water. Neither animal dominates the interaction. Both benefit. This is not instinctive chaos, it is situational strategy. These behaviors suggest a level of cognitive flexibility rarely acknowledged in reef predators. The moray eel does not operate on a single script. It adjusts, it responds, it chooses when to engage and when to remain still. In a world defined by tight spaces and constant competition, this adaptability is a form of intelligence. Human impact on moray eel populations is often indirect but significant. Reef degradation removes the very structures the eel depends on. Coral bleaching, destructive fishing practices, and pollution flatten the architectural complexity of reefs. Without crevices, there is no shelter. Without shelter, the moray eel cannot exist. Unlike mobile predators that can relocate, the moray eel is bound to structure. When structure disappears, so does the species. Despite this, moray eels persist in degraded systems longer than many reef fish. Their tolerance for low oxygen, their ability to remain stationary, and their low energy demands grant them resilience. But resilience is not invincibility. A reef without complexity becomes an open space, and open spaces favor different predators. The moray eel fades not because it is weak, but because its world becomes unrecognizable. The irony of the moray eel story is that its fearsome appearance has often protected it. Humans avoid what they fear. In many regions, moray eels are left alone simply because they are misunderstood. This accidental protection has allowed populations to survive where more attractive species have been overexploited. Yet fear is a fragile shield. It does not stop habitat loss. It does not rebuild reefs. It does not preserve ecological roles. The moray eel remains at the mercy of systems far larger than itself, systems shaped by human decisions made far from the reef. To look past the teeth and into the behavior of the moray eel is to confront a familiar pattern. Nature's most efficient solutions are often mistaken for malice. Stillness becomes threat. Specialization becomes danger. In reality, the moray eel is simply what the reef asked for, a predator shaped by stone, shadow, and patience. And as long as reefs retain their complexity, the moray eel will continue to occupy the spaces between.